I stayed silent when my father-in-law cheated with the neighbor, then with my own mother. But when I discovered he was inappropriate with my daughter, his own granddaughter, I could no longer endure. I decided to expose everything before our relatives and online community. My name is Emily Walker. I'm 33, living in a small town tucked deep in Montana's suburbs. They call it Hollow Creek, a place where Sunday mornings hum with church bells, where folks know the neighbor's dog's name better than their own Wi-Fi password. I live with my husband, my young daughter Lily, and my father-in-law Douglas Walker, a retired sheriff. My husband, Thomas, is a construction engineer working in the next town. He's gone from dawn to dusk. I'm a part-time elementary teacher, balancing childcare and household duties. My father-in-law moved in after my mother-in-law's death. He has a stern demeanor, a warm voice, and the town's respect. Everything seemed normal, even serene. But Hollow Creek, like its name, is peaceful only on the surface. Beneath lies a hollow void, rotting secrets, and I was the one who unwittingly dug them up. It was a Saturday afternoon in June, warm sun, blue sky, maple trees rustling softly in the breeze. I'd just brought Lily back from dance class, parking in the garage, when I saw my father-in-law hurrying out the front door, cap on, wallet and keys in hand. I watched as he climbed into his silver pickup and sped off down the quiet street. Something in his stride made me pause. Not his usual leisurely pace, but rushed, furtive, almost sneaky. I didn't plan to follow him, truly. But a woman's instinct whispered, "Something's wrong." So I drove slowly, keeping my distance, trailing the direction his pickup had turned. His truck stopped at a pale yellow house at the street's end, home to Jenny, the single neighbor who moved in recently. A woman in her 30s, dressed youthfully, always smiling and waving at married men. I parked 2 houses away, engine off, heart pounding. My father-in-law walked into her house like he belonged. No knock, no hesitation. The door closed behind him. Silent. I sat in the car for nearly 20 minutes, unsure what to do. Call my husband? I had no proof. Confront him? I lacked the courage. I only felt pain, a vague ache in my left chest, and disgust. Because this wasn't a stranger. This was someone I trusted, like a father. When he emerged, afternoon sunlight hit his face. His eyes held no remorse, only satisfaction, ease, like after a leisurely tea. I ducked, driving home before he could spot me. That evening, at dinner, he laughed with Lily, recounting old police station tales as if he'd never skulked in the shadows. And I chose silence. That silence was the first crack. A crack I tried to seal with reason, forced forgiveness, until it shattered. I thought that first discovery would be the last, that if I stayed quiet it would pass, that he'd only strayed momentarily with a younger, flirtier, newer neighbor. I convinced myself of this for a week as long as a winter, compressed in my chest. Then I decided to confront him. One Monday morning, after Lily left for school, I waited in the kitchen, where he brewed coffee daily. When he entered, I looked straight into his eyes. "Dad, I know about you and the neighbor." He froze for a second, just one, then set the kettle on the counter. "I don't know what you're talking about." "You can deny it, but your eyes can't hide," I said, voice catching. "Please, stop. For Lily, for Thomas, for yourself, I'm begging you." Silence for a few seconds. Then he nodded faintly. No apology, no explanation, just an empty nod. But I foolishly thought it was enough. 2 months later, my mother came to stay for a few days, citing joint pain, needing rest. My mother is tough, independent since my father's death. She's not weak or reliant. She came, cooked with me, played with Lily, and seemed to get along well with my father-in-law. At first I saw it as politeness. They talked more at meals, watched evening news together, even shopped for produce. Once I entered the kitchen and caught him smiling softly at my mother. eyes gleaming with chilling familiarity, the same look I'd seen at the neighbors. I tried to dismiss it. I'm just paranoid, I told myself. But the unease grew. One night, Lily had a slight fever. I got up for medicine and noticed my mother wasn't in her room. I checked the kitchen. No one. Lights off. I crept down the hallway, a bad feeling rising. Passing the living room, I froze. My father-in-law's study door, usually locked, was ajar. Something urged me closer, and through the crack, I saw my mother on a chair, hand in his. Very close, very intimate. I couldn't hear their words, but their eyes, their silence, it said more than any explanation. I felt torn apart inside. This wasn't just an old man's lapse, it was layered betrayal among those closest to me. My mother, whom I trusted unconditionally. My father-in-law, whom I respected like a father. I didn't scream. I didn't make a scene. I turned, walked back upstairs, each step like treading on thorns. The next morning, I said nothing to my mother. I cooked breakfast as usual, dropped Lily at school as always, worked as if nothing happened. Because I didn't know how to face it. I didn't know what I felt. Anger, sadness, disappointment, or all of them, mean. I didn't know what I felt. Anger, sadness, disappointment, or all of them. But I knew one thing. I'd lost my mother once again, and I chose silence again. But that, perhaps, the biggest mistake of my life. Life after that was never the same. I began seeing everything with suspicion, not just others but myself. I doubted my mother's kindness, doubted my father-in-law's gentle smile, doubted my own choice to stay silent. But what haunted me most was Lily. She was still innocent, still adored Grandpa Doug dearly. He taught her to ride a bike, hid candies in his pocket, whispering, "Don't tell Mom. Kids are drawn to those who spoil them." I always told her, "Never enter Grandpa's room without me." I couldn't explain why. Lily was only 8. How could she grasp the harm adults can cause, through actions or silence? Then one Friday afternoon I came home earlier than usual. The school held a sudden workshop, so I finished teaching at 2 p.m. I didn't tell anyone. On the way home I planned to cook Lily's favorite Southern mac and cheese to surprise her. Pushing open the front door, I heard no TV, saw no Lily in the living room. "Lily, where are you?" No answer. I walked down the hallway, calling her name, listening. Nearing my father-in-law's study, I froze. The door was ajar again. This time I heard soft voices, a familiar deep tone, and a small innocent one. Without thinking, I shoved the door open. There he was, my father-in-law, sitting close to Lily on the sofa, arm around her back. His eyes startled, then quickly shifted to feigned calm. I looked into Lily's eyes. She didn't seem scared. But her eyes, something was wrong. A hint of unease, a hint of confusion, a hint no child should have. I rushed forward, pulling Lily up. "Go to my room." Before Lily could react, I gently pushed her out, slamming the door behind her. I turned, facing him. "What did you do?" He raised an eyebrow. "What the hell are you talking about? We were just chatting. I was telling her about my first case." "You think I'm that stupid? After everything you've done, now Lily?" His face darkened. "What are you accusing me of? I'm her grandfather." "That's why it's even more disgusting." I shook with rage. My body burned like fire. This time, no silence, no forgiveness. I left the room, called Lily, took her upstairs and locked the door. That night I said nothing to Thomas. He wasn't home yet. I just held Lily, listening to her sleep. My chest tightened, thinking of everything. Questions danced in my head. Has he done anything yet? Is this just the start? Did she notice anything wrong? I couldn't bear that feeling again. This time, I wouldn't stay still. I started planning. I checked the home cameras. I'd quietly installed them after his affair with my mother. Luckily, the living room had one by the bookshelf. That afternoon's footage was fully recorded. No clear touching, but their closeness was enough to make anyone's skin crawl. I backed up the video, emailed it to myself, and began calling relatives, cousins, my brother, aunts, uncles, from both sides. One familiar name, Nancy, my cousin, who'd once told me, "Doug looks at Lily strangely." I told them, "I need everyone here this Sunday at my house," and no one says a word. As I was preparing a public unveiling, not just to protect my daughter, but to end forever the silence that poisoned my life. I'd once feared facing family, feared doubting eyes, feared whispers behind my back. But that Sunday morning, standing in my living room with nearly 20 relatives packed in, sunlight streaming through curtains, illuminating their faces, I wasn't afraid anymore. I didn't tremble, I didn't cry. I was calm. My mother wasn't there. She'd gone home after her visit. No one invited her. My father-in-law didn't know what awaited. I told him it was a surprise family gathering, that relatives wanted to see him. He smiled, wore a white shirt, hair neatly combed as usual. To an outsider, he'd seem a good, respected man. I stepped to the room's center, phone ready on its stand. Livestream started, set to public. I didn't need followers, I needed truth to have a place. Thank you all for coming today. I know no one understands why, but what I'm about to say will shock you. And I want to say it here today so no one can dodge or deny anything. The room fell silent. I felt every eye on me. My father-in-law, Douglas Walker, cheated with the neighbor. I saw it myself. Some gasped. Others covered their mouths. But I wasn't done. And then, he cheated with my own mother. A murmur rose. My Aunt Linda whispered, "No way. Emily's mother, how could you?" I continued, voice steady. And now, I found him acting inappropriately with his own granddaughter, my daughter. Lily. Silence engulfed the room, like all air was sucked out. I pressed a button. The home camera video played on a big screen, linked to my phone. Him sitting close to Lily, arm around her shoulder, whispering in her ear. Words unclear, but his eyes, those eyes chilled anyone watching. I didn't need to say more, didn't need to explain, because everyone saw. He stood, face pale, voice sharp. "You're slandering me. This is a setup. You want to destroy this family?" I looked straight into his eyes. This family was destroyed long ago. I'm just the last to open my eyes. Aunt Linda stood, approaching me. "Are you, sure, Emily, could it be a misunderstanding?" I raised my phone, capturing his fearful, angry face, then the room, relatives, with no words to defend him. This isn't a misunderstanding, this is truth, and anyone siding with him is enabling rot. My father-in-law roared, furious. "You're a traitor, you ungrateful woman. I took you in, gave you a home, accepted you as my daughter-in-law, and now this?" I didn't respond. I glanced at Lily standing on the upstairs staircase, clutching her teddy bear, eyes bewildered. I kept her away from the crowd. I turned back to the live stream, speaking slowly. This is the true face of a grandfather, a former sheriff, a man this town revered. I ended the live stream, closed the phone, turned to the room. You all have a choice, believe me, or protect him, but from this moment, Lily and I are leaving. Forever. No one spoke. No one stopped me. My father-in-law stood there, eyes blazing like a cornered beast, but this time he had no power, nothing to threaten me with. I chose to speak, and truth was no longer silence's prisoner. I left Hollow Creek the day after that harrowing Sunday. No warning, no goodbyes. I'd thought someone might hold me back, a cousin, an aunt I was close to, or even Thomas, my husband, who in the end took no side. But no one. Good. That town was never home. It was a worn-out stage where people wore masks of decency, playing a daily act of cozy family life, while behind the curtains hid the dirtiest, most vile secrets. Buried under tradition, morality, silence for peace. I said nothing to Tomas. I left divorce papers on the kitchen table. In a note, I wrote one line. If you ever become a father, I hope you'll understand what it means to protect your child from family. I took Lily and left town at 5 a.m. the next day. The rental car carried us from that dusty red land, through small, desolate country roads where the sun rose behind hills, trailing faint golden streaks like lingering memories not yet faded. Lily didn't ask much. She clutched her teddy bear, occasionally glancing at me, eyes still etched with confusion. Well, where are we going? I gripped her hand tightly. Somewhere no one knows you, somewhere it's just us, okay? She nodded, then looked out the window, face pressed to the glass. I didn't know where to start. No family, no home, no job. I had only one thing of value, Lily, and one final truth I'd dared to speak. We settled in a small Oregon town, far from everything. No familiar faces, no prying eyes, no whispers behind backs. I rented a small house by a pine forest, red roof, weathered wood walls, but cozy. The landlord, Helen, an elderly widow, lived alone, grew organic vegetables, and kept 2 lazy cats. She didn't ask where I was from, didn't judge, just handed me the keys and said, "If you need anything, knock. People live slow here." For the first time in years, I slept deeply, no nightmares. I found work within a week, teaching English part-time at a community center. Pay wasn't great, but enough to live. More importantly, I taught where people smiled genuinely, not the forced grins of Hollow Creek. Lily started at a nearby elementary school. She grew cheerful again. Watching her play with new friends in the park, I cried silently, unable to stop. I knew a long road lay ahead. I wasn't okay, but I was on the right path. I didn't forget what happened. I didn't forgive. I couldn't. But I was learning not to let the past control my future. One evening, while cooking dinner, Lily came up, hugging me from behind. Her voice tiny. "Mom, Grandpa won't find us, right?" I took her hand, nodding softly. "No, he'll never come near you again, I promise." She leaned her head against my back, silent. I felt her heartbeat, and I swore to myself, I'd protect that heartbeat until my last breath. About a month into our new life, I almost believed it was truly over. Lily attended school regularly, joined an art class. I taught English to older learners, people seeking high school diplomas after years away. Evenings we baked cookies or read by the small kitchen fireplace. Helen, the landlord, sometimes brought tomatoes from her garden and shared old stories. Here, time slowed. No gossip, no scrutiny, no Hollow Creek. Until one Wednesday morning, I was checking my personal email for class schedule changes when I saw a new message in spam. No subject. The sender's address was gibberish. But what froze me was the single line. "I know where you are." I've read those 6 words at least 10 times. No attachments, no more words, just 6 words. But they hit like thunder in a clear sky. I closed the laptop, hands trembling. Impossible. No one knew my location except a few at the teaching center, Helen, and Lily's school staff. I'd used a new name for social media, changed my phone number, and registered the house through a lawyer's intermediary. Yet someone knew, and they didn't need to introduce themselves because I knew exactly who it was. That night, I sat by Lily's bed until late. She slept soundly, hair splayed on the pillow, clutching her worn teddy bear. Each breath was gentle, peaceful, heartbreakingly so. I couldn't let anyone destroy this again. I reopened the email, clicked print. I needed a hard copy to report if things escalated. Then I called the only person I still trusted from back there, Nancy, my cousin. She'd helped send the video to a victim advocacy lawyer group before. "Emily, I got an email. Short, but clear. Someone knows where I am. Silence on the other end for a few seconds. Then Nancy asked, voice hoarse, "Are you sure? It's him? No one else has a motive to find me, Nancy." Nancy sighed. "Do you want me to get the lawyer to request protection? Maybe a restraining order?" I sat still, then nodded, though she couldn't see. "Yes, but this time, I won't just run." The next morning I went to the town mayor's office and reported the email. The local police, a man named Jared, over 40, tall, kind-faced, sat across from me in the public room. After hearing the whole story, he didn't nod or doubt, just said, "I'll file the report, contact cybersecurity, and monitor access from Montana. You did the right thing coming here." I nodded, clutching the file tightly. Stepping outside, cold morning wind brushed my collar, but I felt warmer inside. I was preparing for a fight, not for revenge, but to end a nightmare for good. That evening I locked the doors early, drew the curtains, placed a small knife in the kitchen drawer, just for peace of mind. Before bed, I hugged Lily tightly, then lay down, but didn't sleep right away. I stared at the ceiling, thinking, "It's really coming closer. This time, I won't hide. I'll face him, and I'll make him regret coming back." 3 days after that email, I saw him. Not in a dream, not in a photo or screen, but at Lily's school gate. I'd just picked her up, holding her paint box, when my eyes caught a figure under a tree by the parking lot. Long brown coat, hat, dark glasses, but I recognized that stance. The way he kept hands in pockets, slightly hunched, heel tilted to touch the ground. No one could mimic that stance because I'd seen it for over 10 years under one roof. I walked faster, pulling Lily to the car. "Get in now, buckle up." "Mom, what's wrong?" "Someone I don't want to meet, it's okay, but don't leave the car without me, got it?" Lily nodded, face creased with fear. I circled to the driver's side, opened the door. Before getting in, I glanced back. He was gone. I didn't call the police right away. I needed to be sure I wasn't imagining. But that evening, checking the porch camera, one I'd installed when we moved, I saw something that chilled me. A figure stood at the door at 3 a.m. Just stood. No knocking, no movement, no leaving, for over 10 minutes. Then turned, vanished into the dark. I zoomed in, and I saw the small scar on his left chin. The scar he'd bragged about, from glass cutting him as a young cop chasing a criminal. No doubt left. He was here. I called the police the next morning. Jared, the officer I'd met, came to the house with 2 colleagues. I showed them the video, recounted the school encounter. "Do you want an emergency restraining order?" I nodded without hesitation. "I want to file a lawsuit for trespassing, harassment, and child abuse. I have evidence." Jared glanced at Lily playing in the living room corner, voice softening. "We'll do everything we can, but Emily, if he's found you here, you and your daughter need a safer place immediately." I understood, but I was tired of running. I didn't want Lily growing up remembering her mother constantly moving, fearing a man who was once family. Look at Jared. "No, I'll stay. I won't run anymore." That evening, I filed a formal complaint at the district attorney's office, sending the video, threatening email, and printed camera photos to the lawyer Nancy recommended. The next morning I took Lily to stay at Helen's. She kindly agreed to watch her for a few days. She didn't ask much, just held my hand tightly. "If you need another witness." I've seen his eyes. "Cold, dear." I nodded, thanked her, and returned home alone. I had a plan. A swan trap. I turned on the home cameras, activated the audio recorder, and set my phone to record on the bookshelf facing the door. I sent him a message from a temporary email. "If you have something to say, come, I'll listen." One last time. I didn't expect him to come right away, but I knew his type never resists a chance to control and intimidate. At 9:12 p.m. there was a knock. I opened the door, and there he stood. No hiding, no trace of guilt. Just a smirk like, he still controlled everything. Still as bold as ever, Emily. But playing big now, accusing me, Exposing me online? Well done. I didn't answer. I stepped back, letting him enter. The camera was ready, the recorder was on. I asked calmly, "Why am you here?" He stepped closer, voice hissing through his teeth. "Because of you. You ruined my reputation, made the family turn on me, made Thomas divorce you. You think you'll escape?" I looked into his eyes. "You crossed the line. With me? With my mother? With Lily?" His eyes flashed with anger. "I didn't touch her." I raised my face. "But you wanted to, and the video shows it." He stepped back, now seeing the camera. I pointed to the room's corner. "Everything's being recorded, Douglas." He froze for seconds, then turned, running. But this time, police were waiting outside. Jared grabbed him at the door, hand on his shoulder, voice calm. "Douglas Walker, you're under arrest for threatening, trespassing, and suspected child harassment. You have the right to remain silent." The door closed behind them. I stood alone in the living room, hands still shaking. But for the first time in so long, I felt safe. The first court date came on a gray, damp March morning, cold as my mood, stepping through the district courthouse gates. I wore a long gray coat, clutching a file and the USB holding the video that saved me, and my daughter, from a nightmare. My lawyer, Claire, a young woman with curly hair, sharp eyes, and a voice like cold steel, was Nancy's recommendation. From our first meeting, she'd said, "I don't just want to protect you and your daughter. I want to drag the system that shielded him into the light." I trusted her. For the first time, I wasn't fighting alone. Or across the courtroom, Douglas Walker sat still, face gaunt, in an old suit, eyes still defiant as ever. But this time he didn't dominate the room with his presence. This time, he was just a defendant. Beside him was an older lawyer, slickly dressed, Robert Grayson, a former colleague from his sheriff days. I knew instantly this wouldn't be simple. My ex-husband Thomas appeared at the last minute. He sat in the audience, saying nothing to me, glanced briefly, then looked away. I didn't expect him to side with me. I didn't need him to, anymore. When the trial began, Claire presented clearly every piece of evidence, every detail, the threatening email, the home camera video, and my and Lily's statements, taken separately under a psychologist's supervision. Douglas denied everything, of course, claimed I fabricated, that I was paranoid post-divorce, that I was jealous over losing my husband. His lawyer spoke little, but each word was calculated. They aimed to paint me as a mentally unstable woman obsessed with old grudges, not a mother protecting her child. I looked around. No family of mine sat there. But in the back row I saw Helen, my landlord. She nodded slightly when I caught her eye. And Nancy, who stood when called as a witness. I'd seen his eyes. When he looked at Emily's daughter, I grew up with someone like that. I know that feeling. Nancy's words silenced the room for a beat. After the first session, the court hadn't ruled, but the restraining order was extended indefinitely, and electronic monitoring was imposed on Douglas. I left the courtroom, too exhausted to lift my feet. Claire walked beside me, saying softly, "We did well today. But he won't give up easily. We need to prepare for a counterattack." I nodded, throat tight. Deep down, I knew the real battle was just beginning. That evening, I hugged Lily as she slept. She didn't fully grasp what was happening, but I knew she sensed my tension, my worry, despite my efforts to hide it. I stroked her hair, whispering, "I won't let anyone hurt you. No one." A week later, I received an anonymous letter. Inside was an old family photo. Me, Thomas, Lily, and Douglas, taken on our porch at Christmas 5 years ago. My face was crossed out in red ink, with a note, "Family is forever." I knew he wasn't done. But this time, neither was I. There's a truth everyone in Hollow Creek knows but dares not say. Douglas Walker was untouchable. Not because he was rich, not because he was kind, but because he was the town's living icon. Sheriff for 3 terms, leader of drug crime cleanups, honored for tireless service. And that was what scared me most. I knew, with just what I had, I could get him fined, monitored, maybe jailed briefly, but then someone would defend him, claim I was settling personal scores. I needed more than a living room video. I needed the truth he'd buried. I started with a call to a man named Travis, a retired cop, once Douglas's trusted subordinate, long moved away. Nancy gave me his number. At first, Travis refused to talk. "You don't know what you're touching, Emily. Douglas has friends everywhere." Did one thing. "I have an 8-year-old daughter, and he got close to her." A long sigh on the line, silence for nearly half a minute. Then he spoke. "I'll tell you what I know, but you must promise if anything happens to me, you won't stop." What Travis shared kept me awake all night. During his tenure, Douglas coerced confessions, hid evidence in a rape case, intimidated witnesses, even erased a missing teen girl's file, later found dead, all buried by his reputation and influence. "You know why no one spoke?" Travis asked. "Because he didn't just manipulate, he chose the right people to destroy." "Is anyone willing to testify?" Travis hesitated, then said, "Home person. The family of that missing girl. Her mother. But she left Hollow Creek long ago. I'll help you reach her." A week later I met Grace, a woman in her 60s, eyes cloudy but voice sharp as a blade. "Douglas told me, 'Your daughter died because you let her roam.' I stayed silent out of fear. Not anymore." I recorded her entire account, with Travis's stories and the personal case files he'd kept hidden for 10 years. I sent everything to Claire, my lawyer. She spent the night reading, then texted. "We're not just facing a sick man, but a system that shielded him." The case drew local media when Claire filed to expand the criminal investigation, charging Douglas with past abuse of power, evidence destruction, and child violation. A young Oregon reporter, Mason, contacted me. He'd pursued that missing girl case but was forced to drop it. This time, he didn't back down. His first article ran with the headline, "Crimes in the Dark, Sheriff Legend and Buried Truth." It included a photo of Douglas handcuffed outside my house, and a mother's account, mine. The internet erupted. Hollow Creek's people split. Half defended him, calling me a vindictive liar. The other half questioned. Those once silent, once hurt, began emerging. Claire got 4 calls in 2 days. 4 women Douglas had threatened, harassed, or silenced. The gate of truth had opened, and I was no longer afraid. The second trial began on a Monday morning, under the watch of local press, media, and a small group of silent victims. Douglas was led in, orange jumpsuit, hands cuffed. His face lacked the triumph of the first trial, only cold, layered eyes of concealment and bitterness. But this time, he didn't face just me. He faced a past he'd buried alive. Claire started with the living room video, the first evidence. But this time, it was just the opener. Next came Travis's testimony, the ex-cop under Douglas. He detailed witnessing his boss coerce confessions, falsify records, use influence to hide scandals. Then Grace, the mother who lost her daughter. She held an old photo, hands trembling, recounting being blamed for her own grief. He said, "My daughter deserved it, for wearing a short skirt, for being out alone, but the truth, she was 15, and her death was swept away like dust on his desk." The courtroom fell silent, only the reporter's pen scratched urgently. But the biggest surprise was when Claire called the third witness. "Thomas Walker, my ex-husband." I froze for a moment. I didn't know Claire called him. I didn't think he'd agree. He took the stand, face taut. Claire asked, "Did you know your father acted inappropriately with your daughter?" Thomas swallowed, voice hoarse. I knew Emily had suspicions, but I didn't believe. Didn't want to. "And his affairs with your mother-in-law, the neighbor?" Silence stretched like centuries. Then he nodded. I knew. Did you ever object, report, protect your wife and daughter? Thomas bowed his head, voice breaking. No, as I stayed silent. Blair turned to the jury. Silence can be complicity, but today we no longer have that right. She looked at me, nodding slightly. My turn to take the stand. I told everything, no hiding, no holding back, even my silences, my forgiveness, and the moment I saw him touch my daughter's shoulder. I once called him Dad. I cooked for him, washed his shirts, asked him to drive my daughter to school when I was busy, and he exploited it all, not just with me but with so many others. Douglas, you were once a sheriff, but in my home you were an intruder, a nightmare in family's clothing, and today I'm not afraid of you anymore. The trial lasted 3 days. On the third afternoon, the judge ruled. Douglas Walker was convicted of child harassment, witness intimidation, criminal evidence destruction, and past abuse of power. Final sentence: 26 years in prison, no parole for the first 20. No one clapped. No one cheered. Just me, standing in that room, breathing deeply, as if a noose around my neck finally snapped. Leaving the courthouse, I saw Mason, the reporter, waiting with a mic. Emily, any words for others who've been through this? I looked into the camera. Don't stay silent, even if no one believes you, even if it's your father, husband, or the town's hero, because truth will never abandon you. Then I took Lily's hand as she just finished school, brought by Nancy, and left. This time, I didn't leave to escape. I left because I'd won. Justice came. But it wasn't the instant healing many imagine. No glowing aura after the verdict, no crowd cheering as I left the courthouse, just silence. A silence, unlike those years before, no longer terrifying but still empty. Billy and I moved to a smaller apartment in Eugene, Oregon's outskirts, a place with trees, good schools, and no walkers. I changed our last name, both of us. Not to hide, but to start fresh, on a page no one could stain. I returned to teaching, but now at a therapy center for abused women and children. I didn't share my story, I listened. Strange, when you've lived in darkness long enough, you learn to spot someone else in the shadows without them saying a word. Help them learn English, write resumes, draft job letters, and sometimes just sat with them in a quiet room, letting them know someone was there. Lily was still a child. She laughed when painting, loved Sunday morning pancakes, feared the dark, and hugged her teddy bear to sleep. But sometimes she woke startled at night. When I asked, she didn't say, "I had a nightmare," but whispered, "I saw him at the door." I held her tighter. I took Lily to a therapist weekly. She said Lily had mild PTSD, not unusual for what she'd endured. The most important thing, she said, is letting her know she's safe, forever. I hung a whiteboard on Lily's door where she could write anything, the first time I saw her scrawled words. "Mom is a superhero." I cried like a child. The internet forgot my name faster than I expected. Articles about the case faded in weeks. Attention shifted to new scandals, new dramas, new victims. Only a few stayed in touch. Mason, the reporter, emailed to check in. Nancy called monthly. Helen sent cookies for Thanksgiving, with a note, "You survived," and more. I hung that card on the wall, beside the only photo I kept from the old life. Just me and Lily, in a lavender field one soft, sunny afternoon, her hand shielding her eyes, mine resting on her back. No one else. Just us. One spring afternoon, I took Lily to the park. She ran ahead, hair flying in the wind, holding a sun-painted kite. A man sat on a nearby bench, reading. As I passed, he looked up, smiling. Not a polite smile, but a gentle look, like he saw something in you that you didn't see yourself. I smiled back, nodded, kept walking. I didn't think much of it. But, that evening, washing dishes, I saw Lily drawing at the kitchen table. I asked. Were you drawing? She looked up, grinning. Yummy, with someone new. Someone new? Yeah, like the man at the park today. I think you'll have a new friend. I smiled softly, kissed her forehead. I didn't know what the future held. If I could love again, trust again, let someone into our lives again. But I knew this. I no longer lived in fear. I lived in light. And for me, that was enough. That July, Lily and I celebrated her birthday driving to Florence's coast, with endless dunes and waves lapping day and night. She turned 9. In a windy afternoon, hair tangled, I watched her run on the sand, holding a seashell high, shouting, "Mom, I found treasure!" I laughed. For the first time in years, that laugh held no bitter tears. I rewrote my entire story. Not to accuse anyone again, but to remember, because I knew better than anyone, some things, if unwritten, let silence return like a shadow. I wrote each night after Lily slept. In our small house with windows facing a lavender garden, I wrote about Douglas, not as a monster, but a symbol of collapse. About Thomas, the silent man, lacking courage. About Nancy, Claire, Travis, Helen, Mason, who held my hand when I sank deepest. And most of all, about Lily. About her first breath in my arms in a Stark hospital. About her eyes asking, "Will you protect me?" About the absolute small pure trust she gave me though the world cracked beneath us. I printed the manuscript, bound it with a yellow ribbon, wrote on the cover, "To Lily, if you ever need to know what I went through to keep this smile for you." I hid it in a wooden box, locked it, and placed it on her room's bookshelf. Not for her to read now, but one day, when she's old enough, strong enough, ready. Life didn't make me invincible. I still worry at unknown calls, still flinch seeing a cop pass Lily's school. I carry the reflexes of a survivor, but I don't live in fear anymore. I live to love my daughter, to love myself, and to know each day I wake, brew coffee, pack Lily's breakfast, walk her to school, and smile at neighbors. That's a victory. I met the park man again at a community library reading event. His name's Daniel. A home repairman lost his wife to cancer, raising a boy a few years younger than Lily. We talked slowly, no rush. I don't know what the future brings. But for the first time, my heart isn't closed off fearing hurt. One late evening, Lily sat in her room, quietly drawing. I stopped by, asked what she was sketching. She held up the picture, us in a flower field, above it green-scrawled words. "We don't need a castle, just peace." I hugged her, long and tight, and in that moment, I knew. I'd stepped out of the tunnel. I didn't just find life. How's the white?